Good morning. I'm Holly Light, Chair of the LMDC, and I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation for Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. We're holding today's meeting at the offices of Empire State Development, our parent corporation. In advance of today's meeting, the directors have received relevant written materials and comments submitted by the public, and directors are free to ask questions at any time. Consistent with the policy of our parent corporation, we welcome public comment on the actions considered on today's agenda. After the item is presented and any comments are received from directors, we will allow members of the public to provide comments. All comments must be limited to 3 minutes each and should only address the item that's under consideration today. In addition, the public was given the opportunity to comment on agenda items by submitting written comments on or before 12 o'clock p.m. Monday, May 15th, 2023, to public comment at renewnyc.com. Approximately 163 comments were received. Of these, 14 were original, and the rest were a form letter that was signed by multiple people. All of those comments were provided to the directors in advance of today's meeting and are posted online to this meeting's webpage. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I'd like to ask the directors whether anyone has potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on today's agenda. Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the first section of the agenda. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes of the directors' meeting of March 14th, 2023. Are there any questions, comments, additions, or deletions to those minutes? Okay. May I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mehul. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Carl. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. The motion carries, and we will move on to the action item for the World Trade Center Site 5. I will hand it over to Toby Jayasimi, who is Assistant Vice President of ESD for Real Estate and Community Relations and the Project Manager for World Trade Center 5. Toby.
Thank you, Chair Light. Good morning. The directors are requested to take action on the World Trade Center Site 5 development project related to affirmation of amendments to the modified general project plan, override local zoning regulations, authorize the disposition of real property, provide authorization to execute initial agreement, a vehicle screening center easement, deed and project documents, as well as authorization to take related actions. The project was first introduced to the directors over 2 years ago, so before continuing with today's requested actions, I'd like to offer some background information. As you know, the World Trade Center General Project Plan was originally adopted by LMDC in 2004 to provide for memorial and cultural uses, as well as commercial redevelopment of the World Trade Center after the September 11 attacks. The plan provided for 5 commercial towers, public open space, and a performing arts center surrounding the memorial and memorial museum. The 2004 World Trade Center General Project Plan allowed for commercial and/or hotel use on Site 5. Site 5, located at 130 Liberty Street, is the southernmost site of the World Trade Center campus and the location of the Deutsche Bank building, which was severely damaged on 9/11. LMDC used HUD Community Development Block Grant funds to acquire, remediate, and clear Site 5. In 2006, the Port Authority and LMDC entered into a memorandum of understanding by which LMDC would swap 130 and 140 Liberty Street, including Site 5, with the Port Authority for property it owned at the center of the campus to enable the 9/11 Memorial and Memorial Museum, as well as the Performing Arts Center, to be built within and proximate to the footprints of the Twin Towers. In response to community board input, LMDC began discussions with the Port Authority about the possibility of allowing for residential development at Site 5. In 2019, LMDC and the Port Authority entered into another memorandum of understanding to jointly issue an RFP at Site 5 that would allow for as-of-right commercial development or mixed-use development, including a requirement for an affordable housing component, which would require a modification to the general project plan. In early 2021, after a competitive RFP process, a mixed-use project and a development team of Silverstein Properties, Brookfield Properties, the Bar Development, and Omni New York was conditionally designated. Since conditional designation, there have been over 30 public engagement meetings on the proposed project, including meetings with the Community Advisory Committee, presentations to Manhattan Community Board 1, and meetings with project stakeholders, such as the Coalition for 100% Affordable World Trade Center Site 5. When the proposed project was first introduced, the public review process for the modification to the general project plan to allow for mixed-use development, as well as the public review process for the real estate transaction and deal terms, were expected to be carried out simultaneously. In response to a request from local elected officials, and to allow for more time for discussions around increasing the project's affordability requirement, the processes were bifurcated. The World Trade Center Site 5 General Project Plan was presented to the directors in November 2021 for consideration of the modifications to the World Trade Center GPP. In April 2022, after a public hearing, which was held in January of 2022, and a public comment period, which was open through mid-February 2022, the directors approved modifications to allow for mixed-use development in addition to the already approved commercial use at the site. In July of 2022, the directors approved the start of the public review process for the proposed project, including an amendment to the MGPP to override certain zoning requirements to allow for construction of the project in accordance with the mixed-use design guidelines and the proposed real estate transactions. A virtual public hearing was conducted on September 15, 2022, followed by a public comment period through October 17, 2022. 19 of the 27 commenters during the public hearing called for an increase in affordability, most demanding a 100% affordable project. There were 8 supportive commenters who highlighted the opportunity to create thousands of construction jobs and develop a mixed-use tower with hundreds of affordable units without direct public cash subsidy. Of the 18 written comments submitted through the close of the comment period, 14 comments urged for increased affordability, and 4 comments provided for general support of the proposed project. In response to the public comments, requests from local elected officials spanning over 2 years of discussions, and to deliver additional public benefit, the proposed project's affordability requirements have been increased from 25% to 30%. The proposed project would deliver a minimum of the approximate 1,200 units with 30% permanently affordable at an average of 85% of area median income. For discussion purposes, this means 360 low to moderate income earning households will be able to live in Lower Manhattan. 1/3 of the affordable units, or approximately 120 units, will be leased at 60% of area median income. That's earnings of approximately $56,000 a year for an individual and approximately $80,000 a year for a family of 4 being able to afford to live in Lower Manhattan. This proposed change does not require public subsidy. The permanent affordable housing requirements would be governed by a regulatory agreement to be administered by New York State's Affordable Housing Agency, Homes and Community Renewal. The regulatory agreement will address unit distribution, marketing, and leasing requirements, as well as compliance with the agency's requirements. The project may deliver additional affordable units if public subsidy or public funding source is identified by April 2024. Increasing the number of affordable units would require millions of dollars in subsidy. For example, per analysis provided by the development team and shared in various public presentations, approximately $120 million would be needed to increase the affordability to 37.5% of the units at an average of 80% of area median income. Increasing affordability to 50% of the units would require approximately $500 million in subsidy. Last year, the Coalition for 100% Affordable 5 World Trade issued a feasibility study that proposed 2 options for a 100% affordable project. The first option, a 1,600-unit building, would require at least $600 million in subsidy. And the second option, an 800-unit building, would require at least $154 million in subsidy. The coalition's analysis assumed that the land would be offered at a nominal amount, taking away the over $249 million appraised value of the site, and further analysis did not consider the equity need, the value of the hundreds of Section 8 vouchers that would be proposed for the 100% affordable building, or the cost of maintaining and operating a 100% affordable tower in perpetuity. As described in the materials, the proposed project would deliver office space, retail, a community facility, a connection to Liberty Park, and approximately 1,200 residential units, of which at least a minimum 30%, or approximately 360 units, will be permanently affordable to units leased to households earning an average of 85% of area median income. The estimated total development cost for the project is over $1 billion, and during construction, the annual base rent would be $1.345 million, and after construction, the annual base rent steps up to the greater of 21% of cash flow before debt service, or a minimum base rent of $12.5 million annually with a 2% escalation. Per the MOU with the Port Authority and LMDC that was described earlier, the rent payments would be made to the Port Authority. And has been described and discussed at past board meetings, there is a revenue sharing agreement between the Port Authority and the city. There are ongoing discussions about the agreement details, and senior staff will be supportive in finalizing those terms. The proposed project would be subject to a payment in lieu of taxes or pilot agreement that would require the tenant to make payments to the city equivalent to real estate taxes applicable to if ESD were not owner of the site, reduced by the equivalent value of an affordable housing benefit program, or 421A. Since ESD would enter into the lease with the developer, the LMDC directors are being asked to approve the transfer of Site 5 to ESD, as well as an easement to the Port Authority for certain minor encroachments onto Site 5. I'd like to note that the mixed-use design guidelines have been revised to enhance guidelines for the community facility and also to enhance the vertical circulation to the community facility, including the pedestrian bridge to Liberty Park and the through-site connection. With the requested actions, the directors will affirm amendments to the modified general project plan, override local zoning regulations, authorize the site disposition, provide authorization for staff to execute the initial agreement, the vehicle screening center easement, deed and project documents, and authorization for staff to take related actions. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Toby, thank you. And I want to thank you for your years of hard work on this project. It's easy to come to a meeting like this and forget or not know everything that went into coming to a day like today, but it's been a ton of work by a lot of people, so thank you, Toby, for your leadership on this. Do the directors have any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Alicia?
You mentioned that when we have moved from the 25 to the 30% affordability program, that the expectation is that the pilot would be based on, I gather, what we're now referring to as the expired or expiring 421A program. Again, I'm not as familiar with the details right now, but is the proposed income mix of the 30% actually consistent with the current affordable New York statute?
My understanding is that Affordable New York has also sunset and is no longer in place, but the AMI ranges of 60% to 110% does mirror one of the Affordable New York options. I can't recall which at this moment. I want to say option G, but I might be misremembering. But there is similar programming that offers that low to moderate income range for affordable programs.
Okay, but I guess a question / the decision with respect to what the board is about to vote on is that the economic terms of the agreement and the payments that will be made to the city of New York under the pilot, the assumption of the calculation of those pilot payments will be based on a cross-reference to whether it's expired or sunset or not. The calculation that New York City Department of Finance will make will be based on the schedule of 421A payments.
That's correct.
So if I am the treasurer of New York City, if such a thing existed, my expectation in terms of my lease payments will be based on the abatement schedule currently encapsulated, notwithstanding whether or not the actual affordability mix
Changes.
mirrors a particular requirement.
That's correct.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, we'll have an opportunity after public comment to come back to you. Since there's not, we understand that there are members of the public who would like to provide comments. So we will move to that, and just a reminder to keep comments to the 3-minute limit. When your name is called, please proceed to the podium to provide comment. And Joel, I think you will be providing the name of the first 5 speakers, and we'd ask the first one to please come to the podium.
That's right. So the first 5 speakers are Emily Lang, Connor Allerton, Tammy Meltzer, Carlo Casa, and Carol Lamberg.
Hello, is this on? Sorry, excuse me. Hi everyone, my name is Emily Lang. I'm here today on behalf of State Senator Brian Kavanaugh, who represents the 5 World Trade Center site. We've already communicated this in a letter to the Board of Directors, so I'll be brief, but we want to reiterate that we are strongly opposed to moving forward with the public approvals for the proposed project and related real estate transactions at World Trade Center Site 5 before securing the additional resources necessary to increase affordability at the site. We urge you to pause now and reconsider. All of the elected officials, including Congressman Goldman and Councilmember Marte, whose offices are represented here today, as well as Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, Assemblymember Charles Fall, Manhattan Community Board 1, and community advocates are unanimous in our opposition to moving forward. We strongly believe that public agencies that control a major development site in a community where affordable housing is so scarce would work to provide greater levels of affordability than deals that are typically done on private development sites. We urge your agencies to continue to work with the state and the city, the developers, the elected officials, and the community to identify additional funding sources before moving forward. Again, we strongly urge you to pause and reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Connor Allerton.
Hello, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm here speaking on behalf of Christopher Marte, council member for District 1 in Lower Manhattan. Not only do I speaking as the council member, not only do I represent the World Trade Center campus, but communities across Lower Manhattan, all of which have seen demand spike for deeply needed affordable housing. In my district and across the city, scores of rent-stabilized units have been lost to loopholes and demolition, while luxury condos replace them in fewer units and with massive price tags. Scraps of affordable housing provide some relief for the 1 in 1,000 applicant who wins the housing lottery, but even these rents escape the budgets of many. In rare cases, publicly owned lots provide opportunities to yield 100% affordable housing at the lowest income levels. 5 World Trade Center is not a rare case, but a unique one. This is possibly the city's one opportunity to build this many income-restricted units on one property, and what better location than 5 World Trade Center? We have a singular opportunity to build the city's largest income-restricted building in the city's most transit and resource-rich neighborhood in the middle of an affordable housing crisis. I want to make clear that today's proposal does not respond to the years-long call for deeper and more affordability at this site. 5% more affordable units at higher AMI levels with no added subsidy cannot be considered more affordable. Affordability mixes can always change with the same financing, and a greater quantity of less affordability is effectively moot. The demand remains for a greater capital investment into the project to yield more affordable units at comparable or lower income levels. Community advocates have consistently cited potential funding sources that we believe have not been exhausted, and I see no reason why we must proceed with board approvals when no progress has been made on unanimous demands for more affordability. We're not asking for an arbitrary deadline by which funding sources can be identified, but for a commitment from the state to proactively seek out the subsidies necessary to maximize affordability on this site and to seize this unique opportunity. I join my colleagues in urging you to pause this process until these demands are met. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy Meltzer.
I'll wait for the timer. Good morning, Chair Light and esteemed members of the LMDC Board. I'm Tammy Meltzer, Chair of Manhattan Community Board 1 and formerly of the Residents Advisory Council of LMDC. For the past 2 years, CB1 area residents, all of our congressional, state, city representatives and borough leadership, housing organizations, and others have made it clear that their desire that LMDC substantially increase the number of affordable housing units at 5 World Trade Center. The state created LMDC to oversee the $2.8 billion in HUD grants for the purposes of rebuilding the World Trade Center disaster area. And even though it was in their mission statement, they did not create substantial affordable housing in CB1. Until this current project, Tribeca Site 5B was the showpiece for Community District 1 portion of your portfolio. While this project was an incredible example of post-9/11 economic stimulus and community renewal, it yielded a grand total of 77 income-restricted units that are all due to expire in less than a decade. Funding, CB1 stands ready to work with our elected officials to find projects that are eligible for funding and help solve what is widely reported and described as a housing crisis in our region. Ultimately, the creation of mixed-use building that is primarily luxury housing is tantamount to designing a gated community on public property. Our 9/11 survivor community demands better as we're still among those who pay the ultimate price for these attacks. Just last night, we lost another local advocate to 9/11 related complications. And as I stand before you and I think back to the early days of LMDC, when he, along with so many of us, had hopes for rebuilding Lower Manhattan as an example of inclusion with socioeconomically diverse housing to support schools, businesses, and storefronts. Many of us who worked in the World Trade Center campus and even 130 Liberty lived within walking distance of the site. But the loss of affordable housing with the rebuilding has allowed the bidding up of real estate to push too many of those same people out of the homes and neighborhoods. The income profile of Lower Manhattan residents has shifted over the last 20 years to reflect far fewer middle income and working class families as a share of our population. Voting to move this process forward while leaving so many stones unturned would not be fitting one of LMDC's final acts before becoming another part of our 9/11 history. We request that you pause and not vote today. Thank you for the time and the opportunity to speak.
Carlo Casa.
Chair Light and directors of the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Carlo Casa, the Director of Research and Policy at the New York Building Congress. I urge you to support the proposed action to amend the Modified General Project Plan and override local zoning regulations to facilitate the mixed-use development at 5 World Trade Center. The New York Building Congress represents over 500 constituent organizations and over 250,000 skilled tradespeople and professionals who design, build, own, and operate the city's buildings. 5 World Trade Center is an unprecedented opportunity to address the housing crisis facing New York City by delivering 1,200 apartment units, including 360 permanently affordable units, all with remarkable access to public transit. As a mixed-use development, this project will help create a vibrant 24/7 community, particularly with its emphasis on public and community spaces. New York City is in a serious housing crisis, and without projects like 5WTC, the crisis will only grow. This project by itself would deliver 5 times the number of affordable homes produced across all of Lower Manhattan in a typical year, and with permanent affordability. We commend the development team and public sector agencies for working together to maximize the amount of affordable housing that could be provided at this site without public subsidy. 5WTC will also bring in over 10,000 construction jobs and create $1.9 billion in economic output, a critical step in our pandemic recovery. I urge the board to support the development at 5 World Trade Center, which will provide much-needed affordable housing, public spaces, and economic growth. Not later, now. Thank you for your time.
Carol Lamberg.
Greetings to the members of the committee and appreciate all the hard work that everybody's doing. Having said that, I was executive director of Settlement Housing Fund for 30 years and have about a 50-some-odd year experience in affordable housing. I'm proud of every development we've ever done, but a few of them send a message that is very special, like rebuilding the Bronx, Manhattan Plaza for performing artists that just spurred the whole 42nd Street redevelopment. This is another. What a special message it would be to the country if we had 100% affordability with special outreach to first responders and to 9/11 survivors. I think we could find the resources. My founder of Settlement Housing Fund used to say, when government wants to find the money, they can do it. To me, if we went to HUD and got maybe 500 vouchers, we could, from the 2024-25 allocation, and there are several 100,000 vouchers available, some don't even get used, and if we could mix up some of the fair market rent calculations, I believe we could get to much, much more affordability. But it's going to take some work, and so I join my colleagues. It's been here we have a group of people who live in a very well-to-do neighborhood who want affordable housing. When you read about all the projects that die because of local opposition, this is another beautiful message to send to the world. So I hope that, I know you've all worked hard to get this far, but I hope you can pause a little bit longer and roll up our sleeves. We'll all be there with you to achieve maximum affordability at 5 World Trade Center. Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, our next 5 speakers are Mariama James, Richard Corman, Tanya Prado, Daisy Paez, and Jill Goodkind. So, Mariama James.
Good morning. I'm an officer at Community Board 1 and of Downtown Independent Democrats, 2 major supporters of 100% affordability. I'm also the last known remaining Black resident in CB1 since the 1970s. And I'm the first Black district leader in that area as well. AD 65, my home in my district, is also home to a number of 9/11 affected businesses and residents, as well as one of the World Trade Center Environmental Health Centers of Excellence, and our other area hospital. I live 5 blocks east of where Tower 1 once stood, on which my grandfather, Lewis Thomas, was one of only 3 Black construction workers. And consequently, I'm a 9/11 survivor and the mother of 3 survivors. I'm also the daughter of 2 late survivors. I lost my dad in May of 2021, and my mom worked at Deutsche Bank at the site where Tower 5 will now stand and died of her related cancer earlier this year. As such, I'm not just disappointed or even outraged. I'm offended by this move. By vowing to move forward on behalf of private interests on public land without the support of the area's actual members of the public, or our local government at any level, the LMDC has become a rogue agency, something with which the 9/11 community is unfortunately familiar. You didn't listen to us when we told you that the Deutsche Bank building was being improperly dismantled, ultimately causing the death of 2 firefighters and severe injury to another. We were right then and we're right now. Imagine erecting a pillar to the world's super rich practically upon the gravesite of New York's hero labor class with HUD money. It's disgusting. I ask you to please pause this.
Richard Corman.
Good morning, Chair and Board. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Richard Corman. I am a member of the 5 World Trade Center Coalition for 100% Affordable Housing. I happen to be also a member of Community Board 1 and the president of Downtown Independent Democrats. And I'm only here to say a few words because you're going to hear much more from some of the other speakers here. I want to be clear first that the coalition has always supported, continues to support a mixed-use development project on this site with affordable housing. It is, as noted by Carol a moment ago, that there are local residents around this city that have been accused of finding ways to put obstacles so that affordable housing is not put in place. It is exactly the opposite of what we have worked for 2 years, more than 2 years, to in fact bring real affordable housing with real social and economic diversity into this community, and also, very importantly, to recognize the contributions of the World Trade Center, the 9/11 survivors and first responders. This is an opportunity here, public land, public property, where we can make a real difference. We can make an enormous statement. It's important to note that what you heard earlier was that this site, this project, has no public subsidy to it. No public subsidy. It's unheard of. Everyone understands that affordable housing requires public support, public financing. It's unconscionable that we could move forward today without having located the financing that could actually bring much more needed affordability to a community that has lost thousands and thousands of affordable apartments. We need to pause now and work with our elected officials, work with the agencies together. We appreciate what they've done. We appreciate the agencies have worked with us for these last 2 years, but we have not reached the goal. And the goal is to significantly increase affordable housing on this site. And we urge that you pause this vote. We pause this project right now until we can actually find serious affordable housing, find funds for serious affordable housing increase on this site. And I thank you very much.
Tanya Prado.
Hello, I'm here representing the Downtown Alliance. We're the business improvement district for Lower Manhattan. What was once an overwhelmingly commercial district, Lower Manhattan is now a vibrant mixed-use community. The neighborhood is home to over 63,000 residents and a diverse mix of over 1,000 restaurants and retailers. The rebuilding of the World Trade Center campus has been at the heart of that metamorphosis. Brookfield Properties and Silverstein Properties proposed development project for Site 5 would help complete the Trade Center redevelopment and contribute greatly to Lower Manhattan's long-term success and prosperity. The Downtown Alliance has long advocated for the development of Lower Manhattan into a mixed-use district. The residential and retail uses being proposed at Site 5 are consistent with the broader planning principles that have guided Lower Manhattan's 2-decade-long recovery from the September 11th attacks. Bringing new residents into the area is more important now than ever before to provide a larger, consistent customer base for our retailers and restaurants. Everyone acknowledges that far too little affordable housing has been built in Lower Manhattan. While well over 21,000 housing units have been built in the district since 2000, only 552 have been affordable. The current plan, as proposed, an increase to 30%, meaning 360 out of the 120 units would be permanently affordable units for the families in Community Board 1. That is 65% of the total number of units that have been built over a generation. Not only does this project provide that many units, it does so without public subsidy and with permanent affordability. While we welcome further discussions to investigate if additional units can be produced at a sensible cost, it is clear to us that the plan is meritorious in its present state. To reject this proposal will be to ignore Voltaire's admission to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. It is worth noting that the cost of additional subsidies from public sources would come at an unusually high cost per unit. For the creation, for example, of an additional 5% of affordable units, it is estimated that upwards of $58 million public dollars would be needed. At a time where the volume of need throughout the city for affordable housing is huge and pressing, that is a stark sum. Lastly, one of the earliest goals embraced by the World Trade Center planning process was reconnecting the campus to the surrounding community. By adding much-needed retail to Greenwich Street, and the proposed Site 5 project would substantially improve the pedestrian environment in the area south of the World Trade Center, and would finally realize the goal of fully restoring Greenwich Street. On
Thanks.
behalf of our board, we encourage your approval.
Thanks, Tanya.
Daisy Paez.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daisy Paez. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I am a lifelong resident of the Lower East Side. I am the district leader of Assembly District 65 Part B, and I am proud of the Education Alliance community. A proud member of the Education Alliance community. I'm here to give my strong support for the planned 5 World Trade Community Center development. Moving this project forward would allow Education Alliance to expand into a state-of-the-art facility in a landmark location and allow them to better serve the needs of all New Yorkers. To understand just how special an organization like Education Alliance is and how invested they are in the lower community, you just have to take a look at my story. I was first introduced to Education Alliance when I was a young mother looking for a daycare. I brought my 3-year-old daughter to enroll in Education Alliance preschool. At the time, I was 35, had no job, no training, and a young child. Life was pretty stressful. But after enrolling my daughter at Education Alliance, I found out they were just as interested in my success as they were in hers. They took the time to learn who I was and asked me how they can help. With Education Alliance support and much encouragement, I was able to get my GED and eventually attend college. They gave me a job as a receptionist, and I retired 25 years later as the Manny Cancer Center community liaison, helping to bring important issues from the community to the attention of Education Alliance leadership and helping the community understand the many resources Education Alliance had to offer. What I want everybody here to understand is that my story is not unique. Education Alliance has helped so many people who live in the lower Manhattan achieve their dreams. What makes Education Alliance so special is that they understand that everyone's version of American dream is different, but they believe that everyone deserves the chance to live their dreams no matter what zip code they live in, what color their skin is, what accent they have, where they went to school, or where they work. They also believe that our city and our country are stronger if our cities and communities are stronger. That is why they have always remained and invested in the success of people in the lower Manhattan. And it's why they always show up for New Yorkers when we need them the most, whether it was at the tragedy of 9/11 or Hurricane Sandy or now the pandemic. I can't finish it, so thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go with our next batch of speakers. We have Patricia Gray, Anya Horberger, Victoria Ferriello, and Howard Slatkin. So, Patricia.
Hi. I'm a member of the Coalition for 100% Affordable World Trade Center 5. I had some comments prepared for today, but my colleagues in the coalition are doing a fantastic job, and there's no reason for me to duplicate what's being said. I sincerely hope that there will be a big pause to allow this to happen, to find the funds. That's it. Thank you.
Anya. Excuse me. Anya.
Good morning, distinguished board members. I serve as interim president and CEO of Education Alliance, and I'm here today to voice our strong support for the development of 5 World Trade Center. For those of you who don't know EA, we are a nonprofit network of community centers that have served people in Lower Manhattan for over 130 years. EA was originally founded to meet the needs of Jewish immigrants arriving in the United States. Although the demographics of the communities we serve have changed over time, human needs have not, and neither has our mission to help all people realize their version of the American dream. Today, our network of community centers and community-based programs includes 4 brick-and-mortar centers across Lower Manhattan, serving over 50,000 New Yorkers in an average year. As you heard from our community member earlier, no matter which of our programs or centers you engage with, our message is the same: you belong here. Our goal is to turn strangers into neighbors and make high-quality, transformational community programs and social services accessible to all New Yorkers. At the Manny Cantor Center, for example, all of our programs and services are economically integrated and offered at a sliding scale rate, including free of charge. Our board's strategic vision for the organization over the next several years includes exploring ways to increase our impact in Lower Manhattan. The prospect of operating a community space in 5 World Trade Center is well aligned with these goals. We also think that 5 World Trade Center is an incredible opportunity to extend our mission to provide high-quality services to all New Yorkers. In a building with different uses, as well as residents from many different backgrounds, a community space operated by EA offers a unique opportunity to bring people together in a brand-new world-class facility. EA's involvement with the 5 World Trade Center project began when the Manny Cantor Center was recommended to the development team as a best-in-class model of a community facility in Lower Manhattan. We have since entered into an agreement to be the operator of the facility at 5 World Trade Center, and we are grateful for this chance to extend our mission to another neighborhood in Lower Manhattan. As with everything we do at EA, our first step will be a thorough community needs assessment to ensure we understand which programs are most needed by the people living, learning, working, and raising their families in this part of Manhattan, and how we can be most impactful. This work will help us determine the types of programs we will ultimately provide at the 5 World Trade Center community facility. Thank you for your time this morning. I hope I have communicated how excited our organization is by the chance to operate a community facility in the new 5 World Trade Center building, how seriously we take this responsibility, and how aligned this new space will be with our current mission to bring high-quality, transformational programs to all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Victoria Ferriello.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman and board members. My name is Victoria Fariello, and I am a Democratic District Leader in Lower Manhattan, where I've lived since 1998. I'm also a member of the Coalition for 100% Affordable 5 World Trade Center. On September 11th, my husband and I lived on Maiden Lane, just 3 blocks from the South Tower. We witnessed the horrors of that day in real time. We saw the towers disintegrate before our eyes, while people covered in soot ran through the clouds, running down our streets. We watched the destruction of the Trade Center, and we also saw the beauty and strength in our community as members came out, both neighbors and store owners, running to help those who were coming from the towers, not knowing whether they were putting themselves to risk. These are the same people who stayed to rebuild, who, along with first responders, sacrificed their health to come back, and to come back from the worst tragedies, and who now can no longer afford to live there. If you are listening, you are hearing a lot of pain and anger from people testifying. You hear the hurt from broken promises to a community who gave their all to bringing our city, our country, back from the worst terrorist attack in history. Since the birth of the LMDC, the community has asked for affordable housing. Indeed, it was one of the founding principles of the LMDC. The LMDC owes it to the community that stayed to rebuild and the thousands who came after to fulfill this promise, to create true affordable housing. The current proposal for 300 or 360 units in an area that has lost over 6,000 affordable units is simply wrong. We ask that you pause for the LMDC to proactively work with us and engage with the sources such as the Battery Park City Joint Fund. This plan is unacceptable. I respectfully urge you to pause the plan until we have addressed the urgent need for affordable housing. Thank you.
Howard Slatkin.
Thank you, Chair Light and directors, for the opportunity to comment today. I am Howard Slatkin. I'm Executive Director of the Citizens Housing and Planning Council, a nonprofit civic organization dedicated to addressing the city's housing and planning needs. The public discussion of affordable housing sometimes makes it seem as if achieving affordability is primarily an act of will, when, of course, it is a decision about the distribution of resources. The creation of affordable housing in Lower Manhattan, an area rich with access to jobs and services but with little affordable housing, is indeed an important opportunity. And on its own, maximizing affordability sounds like an unquestionable good. But it's important to examine not just opportunity, but opportunity cost. What would funds achieve if they were not directed to this project? The affordability in the ESD-sponsored proposal would be paid for through a pilot arrangement that exchanges future payments in lieu of taxes for affordability, mimicking how tax incentives have historically functioned to support mixed-income development. The revenues foregone here would not exist in the absence of the project and couldn't be spent for other purposes, which presents an important contrast with the use of other potential appropriated funding sources to address affordability goals. New York typically spends all of the funds it has appropriated for affordable housing, so directing more into one project has the implication of meaning less is available for other projects seeking funding. And with a high-cost project such as this one, the approach may not just steer resources from one project or neighborhood to another, but could actually reduce the total amount of affordable housing that these public dollars can buy. This is not to suggest that government should never use its resources in high-cost areas, of course, but this does pose difficult choices that should not be ignored or obscured. Putting funding from other programs into this project could necessitate putting off unspecified affordable housing investments in places like Central Brooklyn or the South Bronx, for example. But the locally oriented process of project review does not generally involve consultation with officials from these other neighborhoods and can obscure the true costs of decisions. It's important to find ways to give voice to those communities that might otherwise quietly be deprived of affordable housing resources. In acting today, I urge LMDC to consider responsibly the approach to funding for affordable housing in a way that's good, not just for the neighborhood, but for all New Yorkers. Thank you.
And that concludes our speakers.
Okay. Thank you, Joel. Thank you to all of our speakers. And as noted earlier, we also received 163 written comments that were provided to the directors and are posted online. Do the directors have any other comments or questions?
I have one quick question. Thank you to Carol and the public. If vouchers were found for this project, could they be applied here?
Yes, as described in the materials, we are providing for a time period through April 2024 to be able to increase the affordability at the project. So if there's a funding source that's identified, be it vouchers or at various levels of government, then we would continue the discussions around increasing affordability at the project. Again, the 30% proposed project at the 85 AMI average is, one would describe it as the floor, to use the language discussed earlier, as a floor for delivering affordability at the project. It doesn't preclude increasing affordability or continuing the discussions around affordability over the course of the next year.
Thank you.
Carl, I've been engaged, as well as Toby and Arden, in multiple conversations with HUD and the city and state about vouchers, since that was something that was brought up. In order to put vouchers to this project, it would have to be a special allocation that would come from Congress. All of the vouchers for New York City go through the NYCHA and through HPD. HPD uses all of its vouchers for its affordable housing pipeline. NYCHA has a 17,750 person waiting list for vouchers. So New York City is probably more oversubscribed for vouchers than any place in the country. So to have a special allocation of the type that Carol talked about would require an act of Congress.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, then I will now entertain a motion for approval for for the actions that Toby laid out. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mehul. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Alicia. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. The motion carries. There being no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all for participating today.